Thank you, Mr. Stanton. You're definitely efficient. 4 bills and a oversight request. We appreciate that. Your less than lethal legislation is something that we are seriously looking at. I think makes sense. So we appreciate that. Thank you. Next is the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Grothman.
Oh, thank you. We just have one bill for you today. As you know, I'm a member of the Oversight Committee, and on there we deal with migrant issues, but this will wind up coming under the purview of the Judiciary Committee. I'm urging the committee to take up H.R. 4869, the Migrant Child Safety Act. The United States is currently in the midst of the worst crisis of unaccompanied alien children in our nation's history. As I'm sure you know, Mr. Chairman, about every month, 8,000 or 9,000 unaccompanied minors are coming into this country. In 2022, there were a total of 152,000 unaccompanied alien children encountered, the most ever in a single year. We're going at about a rate of 5 times coming in now. We're coming in under the Trump administration. The Migrant Child Safety Act would implement a number of changes. We had hearings in which I was kind of shocked at what the Office of Refugee Resettlement was doing and not doing. But in any event, we want them to now get background check requirements for the sponsors, which they've suspended, reporting requirements for children who go missing, and information sharing with state and local agencies. The Office of Refugee Resettlement is required by law to promptly place unaccompanied alien children referred to as custody by the Department of Homeland Security with sponsors deemed capable of providing the child's physical and mental well-being. However, reports indicate that Office of Refugee Resettlement has prioritized expedient release of unaccompanied children to the detriment of their safety. Obviously, it'd be easier to handle the whole thing if they weren't letting so many people in here. The Department of Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra personally pushed for faster processing and discharging of unaccompanied minors to the detriment of the children's safety on multiple occasions, pressuring the staff at OR to treat unaccompanied minors or unaccompanied processing like a factory. He was quoted as saying, if Henry Ford had seen this in his factories, in his plants, he would never become famous and rich. This is not the way you do an assembly line. And you can imagine if they would treat native-born Americans here, they would never get away with it. These reports also cite evidence that as many as 2/3 of the unaccompanied children have been exploited by sponsors and forced to work illegal full-time jobs in hazardous conditions to pay off smuggling debts to cartels. Caseworkers within the ORR claim that HHS regularly ignored obvious signs of labor exploitation, such as single sponsors sponsoring multiple children, hotspots in the country where the vast majority of unaccompanied children's sponsors are not the child's parents, UACs with significant debts, and direct reports of trafficking. In total, reports show that ORR has lost more than 85,000 migrant children in the past 2 years alone. I know that the Biden administration would claim it's a lower number than that, but I think everybody would agree it's in the tens of thousands. It's clear that Congress, can you imagine tens of thousands of missing children? It's clear that Congress needs to step in under the leadership of the House Republicans. Under our leadership, we've made some progress. H.R. 2 included language strengthening information collecting at ORR, but the language doesn't go far enough. In order to see real change, we must implement the policies within the Migrant Child Safety Act. This legislation has the following provisions. We have to ensure proper information collection from potential sponsors, including the name, date of birth, social security number, birthplace, proof of address, and results of background checks, immigration status, and contact information. Secondly, we got to require potential sponsors to provide their familiar relationship to the UAC through documentation, witness testimony, or DNA testing. Third, implement a reporting requirement to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children if ORR is unable to contact the sponsor for follow-up or well-being check within 120 days of placement. Then require that ORR notify appropriate state and local health or welfare agencies within 30 days of placing a UAC with the sponsor in their jurisdiction. And finally, direct ORR to attempt to contact a unaccompanied minor's parents before placing with a sponsor. Isn't that the first thing you'd look for if you found a child? Where's the child's parents? They don't care. Same thing, by the way, with the Department of Labor. They don't care. We find some child working at 2 o'clock in the morning. Why look for the parents? Before I end, I'd like to thank Congressman Gooden for co-leading this legislation with me. I look forward to working with you guys on the issue. It'd be great to get it out of this committee. Thank you.
Thank the gentleman for his work on this issue, and we thank you for your